I never imagined I would one day sit here, staring at the ceiling in the dark, trying to understand where exactly my life slipped out of my hands. My name doesn't matter yet, because what matters is the truth I finally learned about myself and about the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. I'm 33, and until recently I believed my life was steady, predictable, safe. I thought love was something that stayed when you took care of it. I thought loyalty was an automatic reward for loyalty. I thought honesty came naturally when two people promised each other everything. I was wrong about all of it. I used to believe that nothing could shake the foundation of my marriage. I was never the jealous type. I never looked through her phone, never questioned where she went, never doubted her when she said she'd be back late. I trusted her because she gave me no reason not to. Or maybe she did, and I simply refused to see it. Maybe I wanted to believe the life I built was stronger than any threat. Maybe I was too comfortable, too blind, too stupid. Before everything fell apart, our routine felt normal, almost boring, but in a comforting way. We woke up, drank coffee together, joked about how neither of us functioned before caffeine. We argued sometimes, sure, but always about small things, dishes, laundry, stupid habits that annoyed us both but never felt dangerous. She would kiss me goodbye before leaving for work. She'd text me during the day. I loved coming home to her. I loved the feeling that she was mine, not in a controlling way, but in the way that comes from years of being side by side. But that illusion shattered the moment I realized something was wrong. It started small, little changes that I brushed aside. She became harder to talk to. She would flinch slightly when I touched her back. She avoided eye contact during conversations. Her phone was always face down, something she'd never cared about before. When I asked if she was okay, she told me she was just tired. Work was stressful. She wasn't sleeping well. All reasonable explanations. All lies, though I didn't see it at the time. I tried to convince myself everything was fine. I told myself every couple goes through phases. I told myself she still loved me. I forced myself to believe it because the alternative terrified me. But nothing hides forever. The real break started one evening when she came home later than usual. She didn't hear me walk up behind her as she slipped off her shoes. She didn't see me standing there when she pulled out her phone to send a message, one she typed incredibly fast, with a small smile she didn't even realize she was making. A smile I hadn't seen directed at me in weeks. My stomach dropped before I even knew why. Something inside me said, "You need to know." Something else said, "You're not going to like what you find." I asked her where she had been. She flinched barely, but enough. She said she stayed after work to finish some reports. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I didn't even mention that her workplace had closed 2 hours earlier. I simply said I was glad she was home. And maybe that was the moment I decided I needed to find the truth, even if it destroyed me. Over the next few days, I watched everything more carefully. The way she held her phone, the way she typed quickly and then cleared her notifications, the sudden girls' nights that she never mentioned before, the new perfume I didn't buy for her, the glow in her eyes after she returned home, not the glow of happiness, but something else, something guilty. But what truly broke me wasn't suspicion. It was the first moment I realized she might not consider me part of her life anymore. One night, she didn't come home until almost midnight. I waited on the couch, pretending to watch TV but actually listening to every passing car. She walked in looking nervous, and when I asked where she'd been, she sighed like I was the problem. Like my worry was a burden. She said, "You don't need to wait for me every time. I'm not a child." It wasn't the words that hurt, it was the tone. Cold, distant, as if she resented me for caring. I barely slept that night. Something inside me was whispering what I refused to accept. She's slipping away, and someone else might be pulling her. But denial is powerful. I held onto hope longer than I should have. The breaking point came the next weekend. We were invited to a small gathering at a friend's place. I thought it might help us reconnect. I hoped we'd laugh, drink a little, maybe remember what it felt like to be us again. But the moment we arrived, I noticed her scanning the room not for our friends, but like she was searching for someone. Someone who mattered more than me. And then I saw the look she gave him. I didn't know who he was. I'd never seen him before, but she knew him. I could see it, something tight in her posture, the quick inhale, the flicker in her eyes. He never made for me anymore. And when he approached her, when he said her name with a familiarity that made my jaw clench, everything inside me cracked. She didn't introduce us. She didn't even look at me. And in that moment I realized something. I wasn't losing her. I had already lost her. That was the night everything changed. That was the night I understood the truth I had been running from, and that was the night I decided I needed to know everything, no matter how much it hurt. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept circling the same thought like a moth around a dying bulb. How long has she been lying to me? Not the question itself hurt. What hurt was that I already knew the answer, long enough for it to poison everything. In the morning, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw a stranger. Heavy eyes, jaw tight, a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from lack of sleep but from a broken certainty. I used to be a simple man, someone who believed that loyalty mattered, that people kept promises when they said I love you. Now that version of me felt childish. I went to work pretending nothing happened. Pretending is a skill you learn quickly when you're betrayed. You adapt like an animal stepping into a trap but refusing to show it's bleeding. But the worst part was how she acted when she texted me at lunch. "How's your day going, babe?" I stared at that message for a full minute, not because I didn't know how to answer, but because her innocence sounded so convincingly real, so warm, so practiced. I wrote, "Good, busy, simple, neutral, controlled." I didn't want her to sense anything yet, not until I understood everything. That evening I returned home early, claiming an unfinished project. When I walked through the door, the house smelled like her perfume, soft, floral, familiar. It hit me like a punch to the ribs. Something beautiful turned poisonous. She was in the kitchen, humming, cooking pasta like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't secretly giving pieces of herself to another man. "Hey, you're home early," she smiled, and kissed my cheek. And for the first time in our relationship, that simple gesture felt fake. Not because the kiss changed, but because I knew. I played along. I ate dinner. I smiled. I asked about her day. And the whole time I watched her closely, her eyes, her hands, the tremor in her voice whenever I asked something that cornered her just a little too much. I wasn't interrogating her. I was measuring her. After dinner she went to take a shower. I waited until the water turned on, then checked her bag again. Not because I needed more proof, but because I needed to understand the pattern. Her lies had layers. Receipts, lipstick marks on tissues, a hotel key card she'd probably forgot was still inside. People don't accidentally carry guilt. They carry it because deep down they know they might need it again. I put everything back exactly where it was. When she came out, I was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll my phone. She sat next to me, leaned her head on my shoulder like she always did. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I should have said, "No, I'm not. I know everything." I should have confronted her, but I wasn't ready, not because of fear, but because I needed to understand why. I needed the full picture before I tore the mask off. "I'm fine," I said. "Just work." Her relief was visible, and that relief told me everything. She wasn't planning to confess. Not now. Not ever. That night I waited until she fell asleep, then quietly left the bed and sat by the window. The city lights blurred in my eyes, not from sadness, but from something different, something sharp and cold forming inside me. I deserved the truth. If she wasn't going to give it to me, I'd take it myself. The next morning I began my own investigation, not out of revenge, but out of necessity. I needed to see the full structure of her betrayal, not just the pieces. First step, checking phone records. Second step, tracking her work schedule. First step, finding patterns, times she disappeared, explanations that didn't match, days she came home to happy. The truth started building itself like a puzzle. And one detail caught my attention. A weekly yoga class that never appeared on any payment statements. No membership, no transactions, nothing. I waited until the following Tuesday yoga day and followed her. She wasn't nervous. Why would she be? She still believed I was blind. Her car led me across town, past the usual streets, past her workplace, and finally ended at a quiet residential neighborhood. She parked, sat in the car for a moment, checked herself in the mirror, and then she stepped out, fixing her hair, adjusting her shirt, but not in the way someone prepares for yoga. She walked to a small house on the corner. The door opened almost immediately. A man stood there. The same man I saw in the photos. The same man who kept calling at night. The man who had been stealing pieces of my life without looking me in the eyes. She hugged him. Not a friendly hug. Not a confused hug. A slow, familiar one. The type only people who have already decided their intentions use. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't storm toward them. I didn't shout. I just watched, because watching is sometimes more powerful than acting up, because seeing the truth from the outside is sometimes the only way to understand how deeply you've been cut. They went inside. The door closed, and something inside me shifted. Not anger, not rage, but a kind of clarity that felt almost peaceful. Like I finally stepped out of the fog. She wasn't just cheating. She had built a second life. A second version of herself, one she never intended me to see. I stayed in the car for an hour, breathing slowly, letting the reality settle. There was no going back now. There was no fixing this. The only thing left was deciding what to do with the truth. When she returned home later, she kissed me again. I let her lie. But inside me the final switch had already flipped. This relationship was over. It just didn't know it yet. I spent the next morning pretending everything was normal, though nothing inside me felt normal anymore. After what I'd seen the night before, her messages, the pattern, the lies stitched together so neatly, I felt like someone had reached into my chest and twisted something vital out of place. But I didn't explode. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed answers. Real ones, not the polished lies she would spit out if I caught her off guard. When I walked into the kitchen, she was already there, making coffee, humming like nothing at all was wrong. She smiled at me, that same familiar smile I had woken up to for years, and for a second I almost hated myself for loving her as much as I did. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked. I nodded, even though sleep had barely touched me. "Yeah, I have a long day. Meeting at 9, presentation after lunch." She kept talking, stringing together a perfectly rehearsed agenda, one I knew was already a lie. Her meeting at 9 was with him. She just didn't know I knew. I walked past her, kissed her forehead like I always did, because pretending was easier than thinking. But the kiss felt like it landed on someone else's skin. I grabbed my keys and headed out, but I didn't go to work. I parked 2 streets away and waited. At 8:42, she finally walked out of the house. Her red coat, her black bag, her phone pressed to her ear as she laughed softly, the same laugh she used with me long before I became the man she cheated on. She got into her car and drove off. I followed, not close, not stupidly, just enough to see exactly where she would go if she thought I was nowhere near. At 9:06, she pulled into the same parking lot as 2 days before, the same apartment building, the same entrance. 5 minutes later, he walked out, the man I had shaken hands with once at her office party, the man she'd introduced as just a colleague. He held the door open for her, and she walked inside with a smile that I hadn't seen in months. My stomach twisted, but I didn't move. Instead, I sat still in my car, watching the entrance, breathing through the anger until it turned into something colder, sharper, more controlled. I wasn't here to cause a scene. I was here to understand what kind of betrayal I was dealing with. And I did understand, more than I wanted to. Almost an hour passed before she came out again. Her hair was slightly messier, her smile was wider, her steps were lighter. She got into her car and drove away as if nothing in the world weighed on her. As if I didn't exist. That was the moment when something inside me snapped, not in a loud, destructive way, but quietly, like a small wire breaking deep inside a machine. The kind of break that doesn't stop the machine from running immediately, but guarantees it will fail soon. I followed her again, but this time only to see if she would go to work as she claimed, and she did. She walked in through the office doors at 10:27 and greeted her coworkers with the same casual confidence she had used on me for years. That was all I needed. The full timeline, the full truth. But the worst part wasn't that she lied. It was how effortlessly she did it. When I got home later that evening, she was already sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She smiled again when she saw me. "How was your day?" she asked. "Long," I answered. She nodded sympathetically, pretending to care, pretending to love, pretending to be my wife. I watched her carefully, the way she avoided eye contact when she lied, the way her fingers moved on her phone, the way she laughed at messages she quickly swiped away. I realized then that she wasn't just cheating on me. She was living a double life so naturally that the person I had married barely existed anymore. After dinner she went upstairs to shower, and I sat alone in the dim light of the living room, thinking about everything I had discovered. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't jealous. I wasn't heartbroken. What I felt was something deeper, a kind of numb clarity, a dangerous calm. If she wanted to lie, fine. If she wanted him, fine. If she wanted to build her life around deceit, that was her choice. But I would not let her walk away from this untouched. Not after what she had done. Not after what I had seen. Not after everything she had taken from me without even looking guilty about it. The truth would come out. Her mask would fall, her perfect little illusion would shatter, and I wasn't going to raise my voice, or my hand, or make a scene. I was going to do what she never expected. I was going to become the version of myself she underestimated. Silent, patient, unpredictable. Before going to bed, I opened my laptop and started planning the next steps carefully, methodically, without emotion. I wasn't looking for revenge. Not in the dramatic sense. I just wanted her to face the consequences of the lies she believed she was too smart to be caught in, and she would, sooner than she thought. By the time she walked out of the shower and into the bedroom, wrapped in a towel, smiling as if she loved me, I already knew exactly how the next part of this story would unfold, and it wouldn't end the way she imagined. I didn't sleep the night before. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the steady tick of the wall clock and wondering how everything in my life managed to collapse so silently. You'd think betrayal would come with noise, yelling, slammed doors, a thrown glass, something dramatic. But the truth is quieter. It sinks into your bones slowly, like cold air leaking through a cracked window. By morning, I felt empty, not broken, just hollow. And when a man goes from hurt to hollow, something inside him changes permanently. I knew what I had to do. I left the house before sunrise. The kitchen smelled like the coffee she brewed every morning, but for the first time in 3 years, I didn't pour myself a cup. I didn't want anything that reminded me of her routine, of the life I shared with someone who looked me in the eyes every day and lied just as easily as breathing. I drove to the office with the windows down, letting the wind numb me. I wasn't sure if I was preparing myself for confrontation or for closure. Maybe both. The first thing I did when I walked into the building was check if he was there, the man she chose instead of me. The man who had been texting her behind my back while shaking my hand in meetings. His car was already in the parking lot. Of course it was. People like him always arrive early, always pretend to be responsible and confident. Maybe that's why she fell for him, or why she let him in. I made my way down the hallway, passing coworkers who gave me polite smiles, having no idea my life had shattered 3 days ago. I kept my expression neutral. If there's one thing I've learned since this all started, it's that pain can be hidden incredibly well if a man really wants to hide it. I reached his office. The door was slightly open, and I could hear him typing. I didn't knock. I stepped inside, and he looked up, surprised but not alarmed. "Hey man, you're in early," he said, giving me a friendly nod. Friendly? God! The irony almost made me laugh. I closed the door behind me, slowly, deliberately. He noticed the shift immediately in my face, in my posture, in the silence. "What's up?" he asked, his voice dropping a little. I stared at him for a moment, not with anger, not with hatred, just with clarity, the kind that finally arrives after you stop lying to yourself. "You and I need to talk," I said. His eyes flickered, just for a second. That was enough to confirm everything I already knew. "I know about you and her," I continued. "All of it." He leaned back in his chair, trying to mask his reaction. But guilt spreads across a face no matter how hard someone tries to hide it. His jaw tightened. His fingers stopped tapping the desk. He swallowed before speaking. "It's not what you think," he said. I almost laughed. "Almost. Save it," I replied. "I'm past the point where excuses matter." He looked down at the desk, exhaled slowly, then met my eyes again. "She told me things were bad between you two," he said. "She said you were distant." I felt something twist inside me, not pain, not anger, something sharper. "She lied to you the same way she lied to me," I said. "You think you were the exception. No, you were just the distraction she chose." He opened his mouth, then closed it, clearly unsure what to say. I didn't give him long to think. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm not here to make threats. I'm here because I'm done letting the two of you control the narrative." "What do you mean?" he asked. "I mean I'm walking away," I said. "From her. From this. From whatever fantasy you both built behind my back." He looked confused, almost offended. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're just leaving her?" "Yes," I answered. "And you'll understand why soon enough." I turned to leave, but he spoke again. "She cares about you," he said quietly. I stopped at the door, my hand on the handle. "If that was true," I replied, "we wouldn't be having this conversation." I didn't wait for his reply. I didn't care anymore. When I stepped outside, the world felt strangely lighter. Not because anything was fixed, it wasn't, but because I had taken back control of my story. For weeks I had been reacting to their lies, their secrets, their decisions. Now I had made one of my own. The next step was Amelia. I drove home slowly, preparing myself. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, holding a mug between her hands like she needed the warmth to steady herself. Her eyes flicked toward me, cautious. "You left early," she said. "So did you," I replied. She froze, then set the mug down. "Daniel, what's going on?" I sat across from her. No yelling, no dramatic accusations, just truth, simple, heavy truth. "I know," I said softly. Her expression didn't change at first. She blinked. Her lips parted slightly. She inhaled, then exhaled through her nose. Finally, her shoulders slumped. "Who told you?" she whispered. "You did," I said, without realizing it. "Every lie you tried to hide only made the truth clear." She ran a hand through her hair, her eyes growing glossy. Double quotes. "Daniel, please just listen," she said. "It wasn't supposed to." "Stop," I interrupted. "I'm not doing this. I'm not letting you rewrite what happened." She looked up at me with a mixture of fear and desperation. "Do you still love me?" she asked. The question hit harder than I expected, and I answered honestly. "I don't know," I said. "But I know I can't be with you anymore." She covered her mouth with her hand, her breath shaking. "You can't just leave," she said. "I can," I replied quietly. "And I am." I stood up, walked to the bedroom, grabbed the suitcase I had packed the night before, and returned to the hallway. She followed me. Double quotes. "Daniel, please," she whispered. "We can fix this." I paused at the door. "Some things," I said, "aren't meant to be fixed." Then I stepped outside and didn't look back. I woke up before dawn, the room still wrapped in that cold bluish half-light that always made everything feel heavier. For a few seconds I lay still, staring at the ceiling, trying to convince myself that today would feel different, that maybe the weight in my chest wouldn't press so hard. But the truth rushed back in immediately. Everything that happened, everything I learned, everything I did, and everything I lost. I swung my legs off the bed and sat there, elbows on my knees, hands over my face. It had only been a week since I ended things, but the silence in my apartment felt like it had been there for years. The space beside me on the bed was already cold, the shadows seemed thicker, and all the small routines that used to fill my mornings felt pointless. I kept replaying the final conversation with her, how she stood in the doorway, tears sliding down her cheeks, saying she never meant to hurt me, how she tried to touch me and I stepped back, how the words "it's over" tasted like blood in my mouth. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the lies. It was the way she looked at me when she realized I wasn't going to forgive her, like I had just killed the last hope she had. I shook my head, trying to push the thought away. I needed to stop spiraling. I needed to breathe, to accept that some things don't heal, they just become scars you learn to live with. I got dressed and left the apartment. The air outside was sharp, the kind that wakes your senses instantly. As I walked through the still quiet streets, all I could think about was how different everything felt without her beside me. We used to walk together like this at sunrise. She used to loop her arm through mine and joke about how the world only belonged to her. RISERS. Funny how fast a memory can turn into a knife. I kept walking until I reached the small overlook at the edge of the city, the place I always went when I needed to think. The wind tugged at my jacket, and below me the city was slowly coming alive, lights flickering off, people beginning their routines, the distant hum of traffic growing louder. Life kept moving. With or without me. I leaned on the railing and closed my eyes, letting the wind sting my face. For a moment I felt like I could finally exhale. And then her voice echoed in my mind again. I didn't want to lose you. But the moment she chose someone else, she already had. I opened my eyes and forced myself to look forward instead of back. I had spent too long suffocating inside my own thoughts, tangled in what-ifs and maybes. I had begged myself for explanations I would never get. I had tried to understand choices that weren't mine. And now it was time to let the wound be a wound, not a definition. As the sun began breaking over the horizon, I pulled out my phone, not to message her, not to block her, not to scroll through old photos like I had been torturing myself with for days. No, I opened a blank note and typed only 5 words. I survived. I move on. I didn't know what moving on would look like. I didn't know how long it would take. But it was the first time I'd admitted to myself, not anyone else, that surviving heartbreak didn't mean pretending it never happened. It meant choosing to keep walking despite it. And I did. I walked away from the overlook, hands in my pockets, the rising sun warming my face. The weight in my chest was still there, but lighter, manageable, like a bruise instead of a wound. Maybe one day I'd meet someone else. Maybe one day the scars wouldn't burn so sharply. Maybe one day I'd look back and understand why everything had to fall apart this way. But for now it was just me, still breathing, still standing, still learning how to be whole again. And somehow, that was enough.